Hello, YouTubers, and welcome back to another episode of The Grandstand here on the Ohio Patriot Education Network YouTube channel. I'm, as always, your host, AR the Ohio Patriot. And for today's episode, where I have my good old 2A Ohio shirt on right now, I haven't worn this bad boy in several months now, mostly because it's a little bit small for my body, but that's besides the point. But not for today's episode. We're going to talk about the August 8th special election coming up and why you should vote yes on the 60% threshold in the state. And obviously, it has very much to do with Ohio being a 2A state right now. So, for those who don't know, obviously, you have a bunch of special interest groups coming out of the woodwork in the past 6 months or so, give or take. All Democrat based people and stuff like that from various other states across this country who are all a bunch of anti life motherfuckers. They're a bunch of scumbag criminals. They are a bunch of people that should be in prison right now for mass murder of the unborn, as well as crimes of community for those reasons. So basically, you had them decide about, I think it was like a year or two ago is what it was, that what they were doing in other states, whether it be Kansas or Pennsylvania or whatever the case be, or even Michigan for that matter, was another great example of that last year when they pulled there. They decided to make basically a copy and paste amendment now that would both sterilize children with gender transition surgery and stuff like that, with the parental consent and stuff, but also phase it under an abortion amendment where they would be killing the unborn as well. Not for either one of those things, obviously. Obviously. The problem is there is a small vocal minority in the state of Ohio that is. It's mostly in major cities, Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, etc. It's the Democrat Party people that voted for Nan Whaley last year for governor. It's the same scumbags that have Andrew Ginther as mayor in Columbus and Justin Bibb in Cleveland mayor, and et cetera there. And what's interesting to me is that obviously Bibb came out in the last few hours and was like, oh, vote no on August 8th. It's like, bitch, shut the fuck up. You shouldn't even be fucking mayor of Cleveland right now, dude. You are literally a multi-time felon in the past 3 months you've been in office right now. You've committed at least 4 to 5 felonies in office currently, buddy. The fact that you have not been arrested by Ohio state troopers at this point is exactly what's wrong with this state right now. And that's just for like deprivation of law stuff, by the way. That's all like misdemeanor stuff at that point. But he's actually done like other felony shit though, dude, like embezzlement of funds and stuff like that to pimp out his own ride and shit. And it's like, bro, like how are you still sitting in office after that shit? After shit like that, man. It's just so ridiculous. And this is the problem, right? It's these people that it's like you get what you vote for, man. It's just like the same thing with that idiot Andrew Ginther, who over the past 2 weekends down in the short north area of Columbus, which by the way, for those that don't know, when I was living in Columbus back 2010, 2011, I almost got killed in the short north. It was right before it actually. Like basically you have like the short north there. It's like a few blocks is what it is, and then there's like a small blockage right behind it. It was like that half a block or so behind it is where I was almost beaten to death in an alleyway by 2 black dudes back in 2010 or 2010/11. I think it was actually it was actually summer 2010. Now I'm thinking about it because it would have been, I believe, August of that year. There was a Magic the Gathering tournament at the convention center down there that I went to, and yeah, ended up coming into contact with 2 dudes down there while I was trying to walk home. Just trying to walk home, by the way. And yeah, almost got jumped and killed. So one of the many, many reasons why I carry a gun wherever I go nowadays. So anyways, at least within reason, obviously, because, you can't always carry. Sometimes you can't physically carry into buildings or hospitals or whatever the case be that you're going to. But, if I can legally carry, I'm going to carry. That's what it is. And that's why I fought so hard for the actual constitutional carry in the state, because people should be able to carry without having to go get government permission is what it is, man. And I think it's the biggest problem. What's funny to me, too, by the way, is all these Democrats that are against this August 8th election cycle, they're the same jerk-offs that want to sit there and talk about, oh, the Democrat Party cares about people's rights. No, they fucking don't. They haven't for fucking 4 years now, you jackasses. At least 4 years, if not longer than that even. Probably more like about 4 decades, honestly. Seriously. August 7th, 2019, 3 days after the Dayton Massacre, these motherfuckers, Allison Russo, Casey Weinstein, Juanita Brent, Paula Hicks Hudson, all these fucking douchebags. Cecil Thomas was another one of them. Adam Miller was another one of them. tried to ram through gun control in the wake of Dayton. That is why the Ohio Preacher Education Network exists to this day, by the way. That is why I do the work I do here. Because of these fucking scumbags trying to steal my and everybody else's right to keep and bear arms in the state almost 4 years ago now. Because that's how the Democrat Party works. They don't give a shit about your rights, dude. They give a shit about obtaining power and never letting it go. And the same thing with the rhino motherfuckers, too, by the way. So let's not get it twisted on that one. I hate both parties, by the way. I hate both sides of a fucking coin. Because we should not have two-party primaries. We should not have two-party systems. We should have at least a few dozen at least. If not 50 or 60 for that matter. Or more. If it was up to me personally, I'd say have at least 50 different parties in the state of Ohio for actual political representation at this point. But that's the problem, dude, is you have these scumbags doing all kinds of scumbaggery shit in the past decade or so, and you have nobody fighting against it, is what it is. But then they want to sit here on the flip side of things and be like, but let's enshrine Roe versus Wade into the Ohio Constitution that literally nobody wants here. Except for these fucking baby-killing bastards in the major cities, dude. These fucking lunatic people who in most cases shouldn't even have voting rights in this country for that matter. Hell, if you go on our Twitter account right now, I posted one earlier about 10 minutes ago or so, before I started this. There's some psychotic lunatic woman up in like some part of a Cleveland suburb, whatever the case be there, with what appears to be her 3 or 4-year-old son. I'm not sure exactly how old the kid is. He's definitely like a toddler age, knows what it is. To where it's like either pre-K or like, just right before is what it would be then. And she goes into this whole thing, and she obviously was, grooming this kid, and let's call it what it is, dude. She was legitimately trying to get him to say shit they didn't really probably want to say, is what I'm guessing. To the point where she was basically talking about tying Republicans up and tossing them in a lake, but using the kid as the fucking proxy to do so. It's fucked up, dude. That's child abuse 100% right there. The fact there's not cops going to that woman's house right now and arresting her ass for child abuse and taking that kid and putting him into the custody of someone else for that matter is that what's wrong with this country currently. When you use your kid as political tools like that, you are a sick piece of shit, lady. For real. And that's the problem with most of these leftists, dude, entirely in this country. They're the exact same way. It's either they hate themselves or they hate society or they hate everything is what it is, including the kids that they, bore is what it ends up being there. And so instead of being like, oh, let me use, protection or contraceptives or whatever the case be, they're like, oh no, let me use abortion on demand and without consequence. That's what their whole thing is really honestly anymore. They want to sit there and they want to have unfettered access to child murder on demand. And I'll be damned if I'm gonna let that fucking stand, dude. Even just going back to where we were at in the lockdowns, dude, when you had Nan Whaley as mayor of Dayton at the time. That bitch killed at least several thousand unborn children by declaring abortion and Planned Parenthood as essential businesses back then. No, they weren't. Ending human life was not an essential business, you fucking demon cunt. And I am so glad you have no political power in the state anymore, Nan. Because you were the worst fucking mayor ever in the state. And you were one of the worst, if not the worst, gubernatorial candidates ever in this fucking state. And the fact you want to brag about being the first woman in the name of the political party to be fucking governor candidate. Yeah, and you're also the worst one too, by the way. That's what nobody ever talks about, by the way, right? And that's why I will, for that matter. Real quick before we get into the actual meat and bones of the article here we're going to talk about. You have these people that want to sit there and be like, I'm the first this or I'm the first that. That doesn't mean you're going to be good at that job. It means you're the first fucking clown-ass bitch who sat there and was like, oh, well, let me go ahead and look into some stuff. Oh, okay, I can run as this thing and be the first person to do this thing, or whatever the case be. And it's like, all you're proving is you're playing identity politics. And we're fucking sick and tired of it, dude. It's the same exact thing I saw earlier with the, there was some dude down in Florida bitching about $3 million reparations. And it's like, bitch, you were never a fucking slave. You're not getting a dime. Fuck off. Like, seriously. Take your lazy ass to a fucking place and get a job application, get a fucking job. That's also something nobody ever talks about, by the way, is how when it comes to welfare system in this country, whether it be EBT or anything else for that matter, you have, on average, the amount of money that these people are talking about getting reparations and stuff like that, dude, has already been given out for decades now to the black community in various food stamps and stuff like that is what it is, and cash assistance programs and things. So, yeah, you're not getting a dime. You're never getting a dime. You're not entitled to any money at all. So, fuck you, dude. Go get a job. You lazy, entitled bitch. Is what it is, for real. But none of these people ever want to. That's the whole point, dude. They want to sit there and bitch and moan and babble on some more and be the loudest fucking voice in the room or whatever the case be. If it means screaming at the top of their fucking lungs to do so. So, it's like the exact same thing with these abortionist types, dude. You have these people that just want to sit there and bitch and moan and bitch and moan and bitch and moan. And meanwhile, we'll straight up lie about what the actual amendment is for that matter, which is not only just an abortion amendment in November, potentially, it is a child sterilization amendment. It will literally allow kids, if this would pass in November, if they get on the ballot in November, stuff for it to pass before this, after this August election happens for the 60% threshold, it would allow for children 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old without parental consent to go out there, for young girls to have their tits cut off, for young boys to have their dicks cut off. It's fucking disgusting, dude. And the fact that it was even approved at all is fucking bullshit, dude. The fact that they want to sit there and approve any of that garbage in that, dude, is fucking bullshit entirely. Because it should be 2 separate amendments, period. It should have never been one single amendment about abortion, dude, because it's not. It's abortion and it's fucking child sterilization under the moniker of gender affirming care. And I'm so sick and tired of that fucking phrase, dude. That's the thing with the left, too, by the way. It's why they call pedos maps now and shit like that, too, by the way. You know, minor attracted people and crap like that, dude. Because they want to sit there and try to justify sick, disgusting, child abusive behavior like that as something else. It's just like the whole thing about how whenever they do wordsmith shit when it comes to various terminology and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, this cisgendered person, instead of calling them straight, etc., etc. It's all this BS made up terminology by the left, dude. I'm sick and tired of playing into it. I'm not going to play into it anymore. I'm going to call it for what the fuck it is, dude. It's sick, disgusting, depraved, demonic, and satanic entities committing this shit. All because they want to sit there and profit off of it and be the most greedy pieces of shit in the fucking room. So, anyway. Jumping on to Dayton Daily News here for this article we're going to talk about now. Got what we'll see on the ballot. Language approved for Ohio Constitution issue in August 8th election. What's funny is Democrats were all like, oh, this is some bullshit. And it's like, yeah, it says the people who were literally trying to grab guns for the past 4 years and stuff in the state house and the state senate too, for that matter. So, anyway. Continuing on, it said, Ohioans now know the official language they'll see on the ballot when they vote on whether to make it harder to amend the state constitution in August. Yes, vote yes on this. Says the proposed amendment to be voted on August 8th would, quote, require that any proposed amendment to the Ohio Constitution get at least 60% of the votes, raising that threshold from a simple majority. What they don't say about the simple majority is it's 50% plus 1 vote, which could easily be achieved, by the way. Especially when you're buying fucking votes is what it is, dude. Like the Democrats love to do all the time. Not to mention, you know, harvesting and everything else like that here. Anyway, second thing would require that any petition for the amendment to be put in front of voters be signed by at least 5% of eligible voters for each of Ohio's 88 counties, raising that from the current 44 counties, or half the state, that would begin in 2024. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about that right quick here in a sec, as soon as we finish up this last part here. And the third thing, specifically specify that additional signatures cannot be added to a file petition. The fact that they're even allowed to right now is fucking bullshit. It says now additions can be allowed for 10 days after filing said petition. That's a bunch of crap, dude, entirely. But yeah, so here's my problem right now, right? When you actually break down Ohio's 88 counties and stuff like that, I'm not going to sit here and say that like half of them are Democrat or anything like that, because they're not. But there's enough little townships in them, and there's enough major cities in them, obviously, where you could potentially get that 5% from half the fucking state is what it is, dude. That being said, are you going to get 5% from the entire state? Hell no. Are you getting 10% from the entire state? Hell no. Which is what that should be anyway, dude. And that's what I'm saying. Like, we at the network, and specifically myself, 100%. This should not be a 5% across the board. It should be a 10% across the board, dude. Because if you can't get at least 10% of the voter base on your side, guess what? You're not the fucking majority is what it is. And even that 5%, that 5% across the board proves you're still a super minority at that point, because you're basically saying, you know, depending on how many registered voters are in that county or whatever the case be, let's go ahead and say there's 1 million in one of the counties or whatever the case be. That means you're getting like, what was it, like 50,000 or something like that. I think was one. My math is correct on that one. I think, I'm not mistaken. Let me see. I said 1 million. Yeah, because 10% would be 100,000. So yeah, you're talking about 50,000 people potentially in one county. You'd have to get then for that signature requirement then. And that's not like every single county either, too, by the way. There could be like, you know, 75,000 people in that county. So you're talking about like a couple thousand at most. It's like, that's ridiculous, dude. Like, no. If you want to sit there and prove you're the majority, then get the majority of the fucking signatures is what it is. That's the thing. It should be hard as fuck to change a constitution. Whether it be the state constitution or the U.S. Constitution. I mean, for God's sakes, when you look at the U.S. Constitution, dude, there is a reason why you have to have a 38-state referendum to be able to do constitutional changes and to have a convention of states. The fact that you're talking about a 50% plus one vote currently to change a state constitution, like, who the fuck thought that was a good idea back in the day? Like, I'd love to hear that person's fucking argument back in them days, dude, because it's probably like 1850 or something when that happened, honestly, when the state was first created is what it was then. And to sit there and be like, oh, no, that's all you need. No, this shit should have been changed over 100 fucking years ago, honestly, dude. It should have been changed back in like 1925 or something like that, or at least 1921 anyway, because that'd be over 100 years. Telling 1925 would be 98 years then. But yeah, it should have been changed back in the 1920s, honestly. To 60% threshold back then. Anyway, continuing on with the rest of this article, though. Said, let's see here now. It says, current rules have been in place since Ohio adopted the citizen-initiated constitutional amendment process in 1912. Okay, so there you go. So it's 1912. So you're talking about 111 years of bullshit then. So yeah, the fact that's been on par right now for 111 years doesn't mean it's a good thing, man. If anything, it means it should have been changed back in the 1950s or 1960s for that matter, if nothing else. So anyway. Says ballot language was set in a Thursday morning Ohio ballot board meeting where Secretary of State Frank LaRose and representatives, each from both parties, heard public comment and debated. Said language was passed on a 3-2 party line vote with LaRose and other Republicans being the majority. So yeah, you have both Democrats vote against it, and you have the Republicans all vote for it, is what it was, dude. Says meeting followed last week's final passage of Senate Joint Resolution 2, which throughout its legislative process brought opposition testimony from individuals and groups across the state. What's funny to me is that they don't say about that to begin with is it's all left-leaning groups who are bought and paid for to push the fucking abortion shit through in November, dude. Says public protests at the State House. Oh, is that what we're calling insurrections now, by the way? Is public protests? Unanimous dissent from the Democrat lawmakers and splintered support from the Ohio House GOP supermajority. What's funny to me on that one, even going back to that one, I called it out the other day, by the way, when they said splintered support. You had 5 fucking rhinos vote against that shit, dude. 2 of which, by the way, are termed out in 2024 from the State House. And then when they can still hold power, would be running for state Senate then, completely defying the actual terming out of the thing, which is what it should be anyway at this point, dude. So, yeah, bunch of shit. It ain't no fucking division, dude, or splintering, whatever the case be. This is just, who even wrote this bitch? Avery Creamer. I want to see what this dipshit looks like, honestly. Oh, yeah. This kid looks like every fucking thing you would think he looks like, dude. Just a fucking leftist turd sandwich, man, for real. Looking this jackass up. This looks like a chick pretending to be a dude, honestly, man. I'm not even gonna lie. That's who this person looks like, man. Yeah, 100%, man. I'm assuming this is another photo of this fucking clown right here. Fuck this guy. Anyway. Talk about fucking leftist bias. That's what I'm saying, dude. It's all leftist bias is what it is at the end of the day. These people they want to sit there and call insurrection acts as public protests. Fuck you. See, complaints about wording and public testimony Thursday. Don McTeary of One Person, One Vote. By the way, that One Person, One Vote is an actual leftist made up group right now, because if it was really an actual bipartisan thing, it would be one county, one rep. But yeah, this Don guy argued that the adopted description of issue 1 does not highlight the actual changes it would bring. Quote, it does not inform voters in any way what the change is from current law, he said, later highlighting how important he believes it is to tell voters how long current law has been in practice. You know what's funny to me too, by the way? So I love how these people, these leftists, love to say shit like that, dude. Yet these are the same fucking assholes who support the National Firearms Act 1934, by the way. An unconstitutional piece of legislation that's been on the books for almost 90 fucking years now. Just because something is established for X amount of time, dumbasses, doesn't mean that it actually shouldn't be fucking taken out then. You know? It's just like how the Second Amendment itself right now should be rewritten to specify to go fuck yourself when it comes to trying to grab guns. And if you try to grab guns, it should be a death penalty sentence on the fucking spot then. Like, seriously, if there's one thing that our founding fathers did wrong, it was that they did not elaborate enough on the actual Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution for keeping bearer arms, dude. Because there's an actual longer version of it, and I believe it's the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers both, actually, as well as other constitutional law documents that were at the time of there in the 1790s and stuff like that, in the 1800s and stuff, where you actually had a bunch of the founding fathers be like, no, this is what we actually meant to have, like a longer version of the Second Amendment where it was like 10 paragraphs basically, but it was worded down to like 50 words or whatever then, because they wanted to make it short and sweet is what it was. Whereas it should have been like, they should have just had that big ass paper there and just been like, you know, if anybody's got a problem with this, see like this paper here is what it is, and then just have like copies of this shit everywhere is what it would be then. And it would just be like the add-ons to the actual Second Amendment is what it would have been then. About not being infringed and people having the right to keep and bear arms, everything else like that. So, anyway. Continuing on, though. Where right now? Yeah, so that Don guy also argued that, quote, evaluate the standards from the concourse description, evaluating the standards to qualify for and to pass any constitutional amendment is a loaded term that would sway the average voter. More correct, this guy claimed to argue, would be modify or change the standard. I swear to God, this dude thinks everybody's a retard, man. For real. Like, nobody gives a shit about your little wordsmithing crap, dude. Fuck you. So this is board members, State Senator Bill DeMora, Democrat from Columbus. That's one of the new guys, by the way. And Representative Elliot Forhan, who's a pedophile, by the way. And I say that with easy conviction because he's one of the fucking 8 piece of shit Democrats right now who are literally trying to make luring children into fucking cars a slap on the wrist fucking thing in the state of Ohio right now, dude. If that's not a fucking child molester, I don't know who it is, man. Like, you're supporting that shit, bro. At minimum, you are a pedophile enabler, buddy. And you should be thrown out of a fucking state house immediately on the spot. And potentially thrown in prison in the state, honestly, after that. I would say bare minimum be investigated for his potential fucking child abuse and stuff like that, dude. Anyway, those two cocksuckers said the language on the ballot misrepresents how many signatures would need to be gathered by canvassers. Resolution actually requires canvassers to gather signatures from 5% of eligible voters who voted in the last gubernatorial election, not 5% of all registered voters. Then fucking say that then, dude. Say it as midterm elections. That's not that hard, man. If you really want it to be that clear or whatever the case be, then do that shit. Be like it's however many 5% of the gubernatorial elections is, or how many times the midterms are, is what it is, dude. And that's the thing, too, by the way. When you actually look, what's funny to me about the whole thing is, when you look at that whole piece of language there is a big difference in those two, and actually, this is one time I actually will agree with those guys on that one because of the fact that there is a huge, huge difference in the amount of people that vote in midterm elections and the amount of people that vote in general elections for presidents, dude. And that's what kind of pisses me off when it comes to Ohio being one of these off-term years and stuff, where we do the midterm votes and stuff for our governors instead of the actual presidential race things for governor. Because when you actually look at how many people vote for governor in 2022 versus how many people vote for president in 2024 or 2020, it's way more people in both those times, dude. So what's interesting to me too, by the way. So in that case, it would actually be beneficial for the Democrats in this case because it would require them to have less people signing their petitions to actually get their bullshit amendments on our fucking ballots. What it is, dude. So yeah, it should actually be harder, even for that matter. It should be 5% overall is what it should be, honestly, dude. So yeah, it shouldn't be 5% of the fucking gubernatorial race. It should be 5% of the actual registered voters is what it should be, man, for real. But anyway, said Frank LaRose told reporters that it was his goal to explain the proposed amendment in as few words as possible. Makes sense. He said the actual amendment is available for people to read. The argument for and against will be available for people to read, LaRose said. Putting a ton of words on the actual ballot is confusing to people in and of itself. Yes, he's right about that one too, by the way. Because I can tell you right now, I have seriously, as someone who's voted in this state since I was 18 years old, man, for now 20 years, there is a lot of stuff. Hell, even like okay, so here's the thing, right? Last year, during the 2022 midterms, gubernatorial race, stuff like that, there was 2 different amendments on the Ohio ballot then, dude. One was to basically allow it so that you had no illegal aliens being allowed to vote in our state or our state races, what it is. The other one was to basically allow for judges to have the discretion to actually raise bail on violent offenders. Both of them, by the way, passed by like 60-something% thresholds is what it was. It was like 62 to 65%, somewhere in there. I think the one was even 67% maybe, for that matter. I forget which one it was, though, offhand. But no, it was at least like 62 or so was the one. And I think the other one was like 65 to 67, somewhere in there. But anyway, the entire point is, though, that's kind of where the 60% threshold comes from, is because you have that many people, less than a year ago, like literally about 6 months ago, give or take, voting unanimously for those things is what it was. And so what you end up having then is you had a piece of legislation in both of those cases where the one was super confusing how it was written on the actual ballot there, and it was because it was a whole bunch of words, dude. And the thing is, had I personally not looked into this stuff before I went voting and told my mom about it and told everybody else that was around here about it, because we were all talking about voting and stuff like that, and I was like, oh yeah, those amendments that are going on the thing, like this is what you should vote on this one or whatever the case be. I had to look them up beforehand, like a couple days before that, dude, before that Tuesday election cycle. And even then, I was confused by it because it was like really oddly worded. It was like super confusing. And I think that's the problem. In a lot of these cases, and a lot of these, and even going back to a lot of these amendments that have passed in the past is what it is, where you had the stuff with the whole, I'm trying to think what it was now. There was one about a decade ago almost now, where it was a bunch of Democrat-led stuff. Actually, it might have been more than that now. Maybe more like 15 years ago now, where we supposedly voted on. I don't remember voting on that, by the way, but it was something to basically keep our Constitution in like a certain thing or whatever the case be for amending and stuff like that. And the thing was back there, or no, sorry, I think it was when they introduced term limits in the state house. That's what it was. So even back then, like you look at a lot of those ones, how they were written and stuff like that, it was super confusing because the whole point is they're trying to confuse you with some weird ass wordplay so that they can have you vote no against something you want to vote yes on, or vote yes on something you want to vote no on. And that's the entire problem right now, is when you're putting like, these paragraphs of stuff for people to read, dude, and it basically tells you like one thing and then immediately tells you something else like right after that in the same fucking sentence, it's super confusing. And so unless you're actually looking very hard into that, you could easily vote the wrong way is what it is. And again, that's the entire point, though. When you actually look at the amendment that these Democrats are trying to pass in November for this, child murder on demand is what it is, dude, and this child sterilization on demand, it's all fucking fucked up the way it's worded, dude, because it's basically like, oh, you like reproductive freedom. And that's another thing, too, by the way. fuck you fucking pieces of shit, dude, and your bullshit ass terminology of reproductive freedom. It is not reproductive freedom to kill kids in the fucking womb. It is child murder, end of story. So fuck you and fuck your bullshit leftist made up terminology, you scumbag fucking cunts. I am so sick and tired of that shit, dude, and I have fucking had it with your asses over that one alone. That wordsmith bullshit needs to go out the fucking window along with your fucking voting rights, honestly, at this point in history. So, anyway. But yeah, I totally agree with LaRose on that one. Like, make it short and sweet. It's not a thing to put, like, you know, paragraphs of fucking stuff in there and be all like, well, here's how this should be, but then it's all confusing over here, so you're not sure how to vote, which way to vote, man. And then you just vote randomly is what it is. Like, just close your eyes and fucking poke something, you know? Now, granted, that would be, obviously, we had still had hanging chads and stuff like that, which we don't now. It would be actually having to, you know, touch screen something is what it is then with the voting machines now. So, anyway. Continuing on with what's left of this article. Said ballot language is not legally binding. Demora said after meeting concluded, but said, quote, it's misleading to the voters. No, it's not, you stupid bastard. Said no amendments were made and the ballot language was approved 3-2 vote. LaRose joined Senate Joint Resolution 2 primary sponsor Teresa Gavarone and the Republican board appointee Bill Morgan in approval. Said LaRose later told reporters that elevate is a correct word to use based on the donation. I think it's already said there. Said ballot will be included. See, the ballot will also include an explanation for issue 1 approved on the same 3-2 vote. So here's the full explanation. Here we go. Issue 1 takes eligible Ohio voters to consider an amendment to the Constitution of the state of Ohio provided by a 2/3 majority of the Ohio General Assembly. The amendment, if approved, would elevate the standards by which the Constitution of the state of Ohio may be amended. What was the words that they were trying to use again? It was modify and something else. Modify or change. Okay. Yeah, I do kind of agree with that then, like how I'm reading this now, like, because that is a little bit confusing, honestly, like, because even that phrase, like, even that word there, yeah, because to raise or lift up to a higher position, that definitely feels like it was written by some lawyer guy, honestly, dude, like, based on that terminology. I'm not sure if LaRose was, I know he was U.S. military at one point. I don't know if he was ever in the, like, any kind of a Juris Doctorate program or anything like that. So I know a lot of these people are, though, is what it is. They're writing this stuff or writing the language for it is what it is, though, or different lawyer people is what it is then in our state house and our state senate and stuff like that. So anyway, but yeah, so the amendment if approved would evaluate the standards by which the Constitution of the state of Ohio may be amended. Any newly proposed constitutional amendment placed on a statewide ballot must receive at least 60. Okay, so that is actually very broad, or that right there might be a little bit like, you know, quote unquote confusing, but like this is not, obviously. Said any constitutional amendment placed on the ballot, statewide ballot must receive at least 60% of the vote to be approved. Any initiated petition proposing to amend the Constitution of the state of Ohio that is filed with the Secretary of State on or after January 1st, 2024 must contain the signatures of at least 5% of the eligible voters voting residents in each county of the state. Finally, the amendment specifies that new signatures may not be added to an initiative petition proposing to amend the Constitution of the state of Ohio once it has been filed with the Secretary of State on or after January 1st, 2024. So that's basically how this is going to read what we're voting for on August 8th right there. So I think it's good, honestly. To me, it looks good. I think it's going to do well. And I believe this is going to be one of the best election cycles in the state's history, honestly, because it's going to show who the real majority is here in the state. And this is definitely going to be approved, I believe. Now, granted, will it be close? I don't even think it will be close, honestly, dude. Because even looking at, if you go back to the 2022 midterms, when you had DeWine versus Whaley in the governor's race, dude, it was a fucking blowout. It was like 2-1, 3-1 margins for DeWine at that point versus Nan Whaley's crazy ass. And I believe it'll be the exact same numberation for this, honestly. You will definitely see, it'll be, honestly, even going back then to talk about a lot of the state house races and stuff where you had, Republicans 2-1, 3-1 victories and stuff like that for Democrats, dude. I believe it'll be the exact same thing here. You will see people who will have, you will have a bunch of Democrats basically try to gin up a bunch of support for their idiocy is what it is, dude. To try to get their death amendment through in November is what it is. And in reality, what's going to happen here in August is going to be like, fuck you, cunt. And we're going to put that 60% through. And then come November, they're not even going to have the votes to get it on the ballot, dude. I think that's what's going to happen, honestly. And I'm not even going to lie. I'm going to laugh my fucking ass off when that happens. Because these people are the fucking demonic entities of our nation currently, and they can all go fuck off. They want to go kill kids someplace, dude. Take that shit to another state. Hell, take it to another fucking country and see how far it gets you. Give up your U.S. citizenship, leave it at the fucking door while you're packing your stuff and getting the fuck out. But none of them ever will, dude, because they know even for that matter, they want to sit here and bash America, and they want to shit talk our country, and they want to shit talk our Second Amendment and our right to keep and bear arms and our right to free speech and everything else like that. Yet, they know damn well they have had it the best they ever fucking will on earth in this country alone. Why the hell do people think everyone wants to come here? Because America is number one, motherfuckers. It's as simple as that. Because we have the actual freedoms that no other country has, because no other country ever adopted a proper constitution that allows for tyranny to be dealt with so easily. But yet you have these fuckers that want to keep grabbing power and keep grabbing guns and keep grabbing stuff and committing all kinds of tyrannical, unconstitutional acts against the American people. So, yeah, it's a bunch of shit, man. But like I said, it's time to vote yes on August 8th. It's time to do what needs to be done. Hell, you know what? Even though the 2A shirt is a little small on me, I may wear this to the ballot box in August, dude. You know why I'm going to possibly wear this to the ballot box in August? For one reason and one reason only. Because I actually give a fuck about the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution as a whole. And because I want to actually show people what I am personally fighting for. Because I know damn well if we did not have a 60% threshold potentially in place right now, what's going to be the next thing that these fucking scumbags are going to do after this death amendment for child murder in the womb, dude? Oh, let's do away with Article 1, Section 4 of the Ohio Constitution, which grants every citizen of this state the right to keep and bear arms. And I will be damned if I ever let moms demand action, or students demand action, or Everytown, or March for Our Lives, or one of these other fucking cunt-ass anti-gun piece of shit organizations out there that's being Bloomberg funded and Bilderberg funded, etc. ever take away my rights or anybody else's rights to carry guns in this state, dude. Fuck that. That is what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for that, and I'm fighting for the next generation of children to be born in this state. Because that's what this is really about, man. It is a two-pronged attack. It's for these sick fucks to kill the next generation, and then to fuck our current generations out of our own rights is what it is. And I'll be damned if I stand back and have any kind of silence in any of this shit anymore. I will be as vocal as possible, and I will call these fuckers out to their faces anymore, dude. Because I have had it with these fucking people. Had it with them 4 years ago, had it with them 8 years ago, had it with them 14 fucking years ago. And I will be damned damned if I ever allow my rights to be taken away and allow these fuckers to make me a prohibited person under some bullshit rules changes for anything for that matter, which is exactly what's happening right now with that bullshit pistol brace rule that the fucking ATF is trying to come up with now. They are trying to make American citizens, gunners across the board, into prohibited people so that they can take away both our Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms and our other rights to actually vote and remove their fucking douchebag Democrat buddies from office is what it is. Which, by the way, all these ATF agents, the Steve Dettelbecks of the world, dude, they were never fucking elected. You got piece of shit Dettelbeck who fucking lost an AG's race here in Ohio to Dave Yost in 2018. You know why he lost that race? Because Steve Dettelbeck is an anti-gun fucking cunt. He should be in Ohio prison right now for that alone. For the platform he was running on back then. The same thing with that fucking cunt Allison Russo and that little bitch Casey Weinstein, who he hoaxed himself less than a month after I was federally swatted in 2019. These people belong in Ohio State prison, not running any fucking agency or any political position of power for that matter. It's as simple as that, man. Enough is enough of this shit. Enough is enough to have unelected bureaucrats in various output agencies across this country's history, man. There is a reason why our founding fathers wrote the Constitution the way that they did. They were some of the greatest men ever born. Most of them weren't even born here in America. They were born overseas in places like Britain, etc. there. They migrated to America to be the founding colonists of this great nation. And they realized how great freedom from fucking the British Empire was. And that's why they're like, nah, bro, we want to keep this place. Fuck your taxation. Fuck your lack of representation, etc., etc. We're taking this land, bitch. And that's pretty much how it went down. Obviously, there was more to it than that, but, you know, that's basically just the gist of it is what it is. You know, that's my little add-on is what it would be there. But nah, seriously. I mean, you look, actually, what's interesting is you look at the founding of this country's history and stuff like that with the actual First American Revolution, which is why we're kind of leading to a second one right now is what it is. First American Revolution, when you actually look at places, different events throughout it, like Bloody Sunday and, you know, Boston Tea Party and stuff like that, everybody sits here that's, you know, just glossing over that in the U.S. history course, or whatever the case be in, you know, high school or college or whatever it is there you're taking that class in. And they want to sit there and act like, oh, this all happened in the time span of like 6 months or something. Nah, bro. All those events like that, it was like a 10-year buildup to 1776, man. So to sit there and think that it happened in like a 6-month or a year time span or whatever the case be, it's like that is way off, dude. You're off by like a decade at that point. Because the real fact of the matter is, it was this whole lead up to where they're like, no, it's government overreach. Fuck your government overreach and stuff like that. And eventually it came down to a boiling point where they were like, we got to fight these motherfuckers. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now, honestly. Where you have these unelected bureaucrats and these output agencies, you see all these douchebags that are fucking, you know, scumbagging their way into office, etc., that should be in prison right now for the actual platforms they're running upon, because they're all unconstitutional, they're all anti-gun, etc., they're all anti-life for that matter as well, on top of that. They completely defy the oath to the Constitution that they're swearing to uphold when they take office. And that alone, the day that they actually take office and they swear they don't have to uphold the Constitution and stuff like that, because they're obviously breaking it on the spot by just even the platform they ran on. So it's like, why even allow them to take that office, dude, when they're completely an oath-breaking sack of shit is what it is. And then when they obviously, you know, a few minutes to a few hours later to a couple days later, whatever it is, with legislation or votes for, you know, leadership and stuff like that, when they're doing all this unconstitutional stuff like that and breaking their oath almost immediately is what it is, why are they still staying in office after that then? That is why oath breaking should be a first-degree felony in this country. That is why deprivation of rights under color of law should be a death penalty sentence in this country. When you were trying to deprive people of their right to keep and bear arms, of their right to life, etc., you shouldn't be on this earth anymore. And it's as simple as that, really. And when you're running on those platforms for office, you should be disqualified on the spot from even running under a 20th Amendment of the Constitution at this point. And it's as simple as that, really. So, yeah, needless to say, I'll be voting yes come August 8th, and that's used to both the same at this point because we need to have a 60% threshold in the Ohio Constitution to change it. We need to stop letting these outside special interests try to fuck with our state, try to fuck with our ability to have birth replacement rates. And meanwhile, these are the same scumbag NGOs, these Soros created pieces of shit like that, etc., that are telling everybody our borders open for business at this point and trying to infiltrate our country with various literal busloads and truckloads and train loads of fighting age men because they want foreign standing armies in our damn soil. I'll be damned if I let that fucking happen right now. And it's as simple as that. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see y'all in the next one.